As COVID-19 rages on across the world, scientists have been warning that this won't be the last pandemic we will see spreading globally in our lifetime. New diseases are more than likely to emerge. In fact, World Health Organization Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus said that epidemics are a fact of life. But could humans one day become immune to all viruses like COVID-19 and even beat genetic diseases and reverse aging? Today, we speak with an eminent scientist who has long imagined this kind of future for humanity. Dr. George Church is a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School and director of the Center of Excellence in Genomics Science at Harvard. In 1984, he developed the first direct genomic sequencing method, which resulted in the first commercial genome sequence in 1994. Named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2017, Dr. Church has pioneered not only breakthroughs in genome research, but has had his innovations in next-generation genome sequencing and synthesis and cell tissue engineering go into the real world, producing more than a dozen companies, including Nebula Genomics. Welcome to the show, Dr. Church. It's lovely to have you on. How are you today, sir?
It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Right, well, as you know, there's been wide-scale vaccination efforts across the world, including your country in the United States. Here in South Korea, we're set to begin our own in a couple of weeks. But you actually took a DIY COVID-19 vaccine last year, and that was well before the big pharmaceuticals got their candidates approved. Well, it really sounds like an anti-vaxxer's worst nightmare, but do you think it's worked, and why did you agree to take this leap of faith?
Well, it wasn't a very big leap. I'm sorry. It was a nasal delivery, and I think it was intended to make transparent the process of vaccines for everybody, and it might even appeal to anti-vaxxers more because it's not a government mandate. It was demystified. Anyway, the nasal route is intrinsically safer and more direct for a virus that comes in through your nasal passages. It's better to have your immune system tuned up at that location, the mucosal, than to have your entire body exposed to the vaccine. So we felt it was safer and potentially more effective.
And I was very interested to hear the whole idea behind this initiative, really trying to get the vaccine out to more people. What really was the big idea?
It was educational in part and grassroots, as we've done other projects in the past that engage the public. This was to show them that it isn't necessarily some mysterious or proprietary thing. This is something that could be crowdsourced or made available to everyone. And also to recognize that vaccine developers often want to or feel ethically compelled to use their own vaccine first. So we were showing that as well.
Well, observing all the different responses to COVID-19 around the world in terms of developing vaccines and therapeutics as well, do you think these kinds of efforts could have been faster or better in any way?
There's no doubt that they could be faster and better. The experiment was done in a certain sense. The Chinese and South Korean governments were very effective in that they had up to 400 times fewer deaths per capita than the United States, even though they had 6 weeks less of a head start. I mean, we had 6 weeks to prepare ourselves, and we're 400 times less effective. And that was not a race for the vaccine at all. That was really just good old-fashioned hygiene, simple masks, social distancing, and that sort of thing. It was just more effectively done in some countries than in others.
And well, we are looking to the very big pharmaceutical companies to provide us with the doses of vaccines being distributed in countries around the world. And well, some of them, though, they do seem rather expensive. They are mostly above the hourly minimum wage, I suppose, costing between $20 to $40 per jab if it's the mRNA one. What do you think of this kind of, well, cost model, I suppose, for these vaccines across the world? I mean, we're seeing a lot of developing countries really falling behind on, in the schedule in terms of getting their hands on the vaccine?
Well, I've dedicated a huge fraction of my career to bringing down the prices of various medicines. So we brought down the cost of reading your genome by 30 million-fold. It's a little harder to do that with drugs and vaccines, but polio is an example where the per dose for the oral vaccine was as low as 13 cents, 13 hundredths of a US dollar. The injected form, which is probably a little bit better, is $3 a dose. So it's still in the same ballpark. And certainly when you have a life and death situation, $20 is something that somebody should be paying for it, because the consequences of not doing it is very high. And these are new technologies, so the cost of the R&D has to be paid off. But I'm hopeful that they will make every effort to bring the cost down, especially in the poorer nations.
And of course, scientists, governments everywhere, they're trying their best to really contain this virus and beat it as well. But there seems to be quite a lot that we still don't know about COVID-19. Although it has been almost a year since it was declared a global pandemic, there are lots of questions that have been going unanswered. For instance, how long the immune response would last, and whether a person is safe from COVID-19 after their first vaccine dose, and nowadays whether vaccination will protect them against other variants that might emerge. Is there a way that genetic science, genomic science can answer these questions?
Well, there's a great deal of variation from person to person and from viral variant to viral variant, as well as previous history of exposure to other related and unrelated pathogens. All of this can be recorded for each individual, and in an ideal world, they would be shared internationally. Again, our group has worked very hard at coming up with sharing mechanisms. And I hope that in a pandemic like this, that would be especially true.
And of course, we're expecting to see medicine in general become more precise, predictive, preventive and personal as well. And in 1984, you devised the first genomic sequencing technology, which was later commercialized as well. And today, with the help of artificial intelligence and computer science, we're expecting to see greater advancements, faster advancements in that regard. What kind of applications are you most excited about?
Well, I'm very excited about a method that we have developed that we think can make any cell, any organism resistant to all viruses. But in order to be safe from not just viruses, but bacteria and fungi, we need to really double down on our diagnostic capabilities. We need something equivalent to a weather map, which I call a bioweather map, and get everybody engaged in monitoring where the pathogens are floating around, both locally and globally, the same way that they would be interested in the weather, which determines their safety in both cases. And the cost of that is extremely low compared to the costs that were of all the costs combined are tens of trillions of dollars for just this one disease, COVID-19. There will be more. The cost of doing the global diagnostics on a preventative and ongoing basis is hundreds of times cheaper.
But what's quite concerning for the average person, a non-scientist, is that we keep hearing, we're hearing experts say that maybe COVID-19 won't ever go away, and there are going to be more epidemics in the future. But with the development of genomic technology and science, do you think we could see a world where the human being could become immune to infectious diseases? How do you hope that science will tackle the threat of future epidemics?
Well, so we have been extremely successful with some vaccines, both bacterial and viral, including smallpox and measles and so forth. But there are other where we have tried many times, tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV, for example. It doesn't mean they're impossible, it just means that they don't happen easily. And coronavirus, various common cold viruses have been challenging to develop a vaccine for so far. So I think that what we really need to get very good at is a rapid response where we employ, maybe even routinely, the kind of hygiene. You don't go outside typically without your clothes on. You shouldn't go out without your mask, a good mask. It's just part of your clothing. That would be a way of good preventative medicine, very inexpensive and cost effective.
And you've been encouraging the sharing of data when it comes to medical data and genomic studies, but there are still concerns about privacy over our health data, and that's actually one of the reasons why South Korea has been seeing a rather slow development or slow progress in developing regenerative medicine. But, well, really, the issue of privacy, it makes people uncomfortable as well, that huge companies like Amazon and Walmart, they're also getting into healthcare. How can people really become empowered with their health information? And I know you've been doing a lot of work on that regard. How do the principles behind the Personal Genome Project and your company, Nebula Genomics, overcome these kinds of barriers?
Well, those two are on opposite ends of the spectrum, where Personal Genome Project is all about sharing, very, very open, and Nebula is about ultra privacy. And the danger lies somewhere in between, where you're trying to do a little of each, kind of partial privacy, partial sharing. That is much more likely to go south, go wrong. But you could consider this whole worry about privacy as a symptom more than it is a goal. That is that if we had a system where there were very few or no consequences to sharing, then people would do it more. I think that was the intention, the general direction of the United States Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008. And I think that if we were effective at reducing the consequences of discrimination in the workplace, in insurance, in healthcare, even personal discrimination, then we would, then people would be much more willing to share.
And there's been a great amount of interest in your research in aging reversal. And, well, you've already helped tackle osteoarthritis and high-fat obesity and diabetes, also heart damage, as well as kidney disease. And, well, you're hoping to ultimately improve health span and longevity as well. But first of all, how are you making our bodies act like they are younger and healthier? And how far along are you in addressing other conditions that tend to come with aging, like cancer and neurodegenerative diseases?
Well, so in addition to the 5 diseases you mentioned, we've added 2 more, involved vascular valve disease and neurodegenerative disease, and moved it from mice to dogs, and then soon dogs to humans. The point of having multiple diseases, which have nothing to do with each other than they're age-related, means that we're probably looking, or we're trying to look at the core mechanisms of aging rather than a few symptoms of individual diseases. So that's why we do multiple diseases, and we're doing reversal of those diseases that is much more amenable to approval by the FDA or the MFDS in Korea. So we are getting very good results in the animal models, and we'll hopefully move on to humans soon.
Oh, when do you see your age reversing gene therapy actually hitting the market?
So it typically takes a couple of years to get through the animal approval. So we're getting approval for veterinary drug for dogs. People care deeply about their dogs' health at the end of life. And then it takes a couple of years after that to get human clinical trials with basically the same genes involved. And then it takes a decade normally to get through approval internationally to get into the marketplace. So it's, but that's relatively, I mean, that's relatively fast compared to aging itself.
It certainly is, and well, it looks like there's a lot that we can look forward to after this pandemic, and well, regarding the future of humanity, it seems. And well, this is where we'll have to wrap up the interview today, but thank you so much for your time. That was Dr. George Church, a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School. Again, it was an honor to have you on our show. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And to our viewers, as always, thank you very much for watching.